All right, Scott. I know we talked a little bit before, but still, uh, can you like introduce yourself a little bit for the audience?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, first of all. Yeah, happy to talk with you here. Yeah, my name's Scott Coleman. I'm a biomechanist at Thea Marcellus right now. Been in the biomechanics world now, believe it or not. I can't believe it, really. This is my 30th year. So, um,
Really?
yeah. Got out of grad school, started grad school, I should say, in 96, got out in 99, and I've been doing this ever since. So, love it. Love the field. Love the technology, and it's only getting, better and better. So, been both on the kind of both sides of the coin. I've been working for several different companies on the industry side and been a user of, the technology, both on like the clinical pediatric orthopedic side. Did some orthopedic research in another position, working with total ankles, total knees, total joint replacements. So been both a user and now I'm helping people kind of solve their questions and answers, which is, yeah, it's fun and rewarding. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So, um, obviously, like in Taiwan, we don't have this term biomechanist. Like we're more
Yep.
just like strength and conditioning coach, and there's not even a lot of sports scientists. Probably that's the same around all Asia. So,
Okay.
um, can you kind of explain like what do you do like in terms of like uh understanding like how human body moves and like how to like understand like those data?
Yeah, really good question, loaded question. Yeah, biomechanics, like you said, study of human movement. So I always kind of like to work backwards again with the question and answer. Like, what question are you trying to answer, and how can we use biomechanics and surrounding technologies, to solve those questions and answers. So that's kind of really what I do now is talk to a lot of people and how can markerless motion capture technology at Thea? How can we best help you? So I always start there and say, all right, what are you trying to do? Is it in a specific sport? Is it in a hospital? Is it teaching and research? And then work back and say, okay, well, this is what I think. If I was in your position, this is kind of what I would do. This is the tech you need. Are you trying to help, disabled like kiddos, and you're in a hospital setting? How many times are you going to see them? Is this pre and post? Are you going to use this for surgical decisions? Are you at the MLB level? Are you using this for player development? Are you using this for scouting? The NBA, is it player safety and overall wellness, health reasons? Is it like a shooting lab? Are you just trying to get better? So there's a lot of different ways, and you'd be amazed at the different calls that we get at Thea. It could be an Olympic like archery person, somebody that wants to develop a better rowing machine. Um, yeah, it's general biomechanics. As you can imagine, how the body moves is important in so many different ways and activities. You never, you get to see a really broad spectrum. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So, um, I know like a lot of like pro sports like clubs are purchasing or like doing this biomechanics lab, like Major League Baseball, even uh NFL, and now like NBA trying to do that. So, um, just can you talk like a little bit about how do you think like this uh motion capture thing can help us as practitioner to maybe I don't know understand injury more, understand human movement more, or predict injury? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it really depends on, again, the activity. But if you take like Major League Baseball, for example, I mean, they're the first sport in league to really take advantage of motion capture, whether it's marker based or now markerless. They take advantage of it. They use it more than any other sport in league. That's starting to spill over. The NBA is the next sport in league that's really taking advantage of biomechanics, like Major League Baseball. So I would say, MLB has put together a really good model on how to leverage biomechanical data. So I think a lot of people are going to, they're already started. This is what we want to do. These are the possibilities. But is it injury prevention? Yes, it could be. Is it rehabilitation? Is it, yeah, again, scouting and pitch tipping? Like, that stuff, we see that every once in a while pop up in the news, right on Sports Center. Um, but can we dial that down now that we can collect data in game? Like the scale of the data that is being collected, these guys don't even know data is being collected on them, right? They're in their natural environment. They're not thinking about it. They're in competition. So are we getting much more, I'd say, quality data? We're not throwing people in a lab anymore and having them kind of stripped down to their, sliders or shorts, spending hours collecting the data. They're just in a game. Someone's sitting there and just hitting start and stop, start and stop. So we have more data collected now in one baseball game than most labs did in an entire year. So
Mm,
the scale of the data is really allowing us to then just draw so much more like inference from it because of that scale. And with AI, machine learning, we're really starting to leverage it. I know for the first time. I say the first time, really in the past 5 years. Um, when I started in baseball in like 2019, there was only three or four organizations that had the in-game capabilities. Now there's only three or four teams that don't really use it that much. So it's a complete 180. And with the markerless technology, it's funny, I always say this, back 10 years ago, we spent 95% of our time collecting the data, processing the data, and then 5% of our time interpreting the data. Now it's a complete 180. We're spending 5% of our time getting it to that, collecting the data, processing it, and we have 95% of our time on the interpretation part. And that's really opened it up for strength and conditioning coaches, medical, even executives, to better leverage that data and answer those questions. In MLB, executives could use it, scouts can use it, coaches for player performance, the medical staff, strength and conditioning coaches. So they're all collecting the same data. They're just using it in slightly different ways. So
mm,
lots of opportunity. Yeah.
nice, nice. I'm glad that you brought up in baseball world, they actually are able to collect in-game data right now.
Yeah.
And last time I talked to Adam or Terrace Hightower, they were saying like it's easier for baseball because the pitcher just stand at the same position and pitch. The hitter also stand in just like that box to hit.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge part of like baseball are able to collect in-game data, which compared to like basketball or like even football, it's harder. And last year I remember talking to them, they're saying like if you want to collect in-game data in basketball, it took a week to process like only one quarter of like uh the data they're tracking.
Yeah.
So that's like that's like a year ago. What about now?
Yeah. It's still the same, but that's a really good point. I mean, pitching and batting, it's such a short, right, time period for a pitch. Golf is kind of the same way. They're really these short amounts of time, this really discrete time period, and being able to hyper focus in on a golfer or a pitcher or a batter, it's really makes it, yeah, like to your point, it makes it very easy. Basketball, definitely harder. There's so much occlusion from, you have 10 people on the court, you have some referees, you have coaches, sometimes being tracked because they're two steps in. So there's definitely challenges there. And also how to contextualize the data. You could collect, a play in a basketball game, it could go on for minutes. So you're just going to collect the entire game and then go back and try to parse through and pick out key plays that you want. Like, how do you do that? And what are you looking for? So that's a big challenge in basketball is you have to collect it all because you don't know when something of interest is going to happen, right? And then if something of interest does happen, are three other guys blocking camera views. So do you need more cameras? Yeah, you definitely need more cameras. But to go back and sift through that data, it's a challenge. And every year, processing time, camera technology, all this stuff is improving, and that's definitely helping. But we still have a little ways to go to make it uh, more turnkey. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, can you kind of talk about, we already have like force plate technology. We already have like, this is probably a stupid question, but we already have force plate technology. We already have like catapult connects on. We already have um like force frame to test the adductor strain, abductor strain, plantar flexion, whatsoever. Like how or what are some value you think like markerless motion capture can bring on the table?
Yeah, well, the first part is the integration of these different technologies, right? So force plates and motion capture data, they've kind of been working hand in hand for, I mean, it's like 30 plus years. It's just a natural integration. Um, but, motion capture data, yeah, that's great, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. So the more different technologies that you can integrate to better contextualize what you're trying to see or what you're trying to test. I think there's still opportunities there. There's still challenges. There's new devices, new measurements, new technologies emerging. So it's very fluid. But I think companies that see that and realize that and offer that integration, they definitely have a leg up on others that don't do that. So I see a huge advantage there. With motion capture data, say pitching, for example, we don't pick up on the type of pitch, right? We don't do that. And we don't always measure like velo. Um, so integrating with TrackMan or StatCast and getting that information will better help us kind of sift through the biomechanical data, you know. So definitely the integration piece is very important. So the more that happens, it's going to make everything easier and just more valuable in general. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Um, can you talk a little bit more about like the integration part? Like what exactly like when you say integration, what exactly does that mean?
It's basically marrying the data together, right? If you have, so I'll use TrackMan again at the college level. If we can grab that data and bring it into the same system so that we can look at, all right, well, what's the pitcher doing with curveballs versus fastballs? All right. Are they tipping their pitches? Is the release point at the same spot? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. A lot of guys, it isn't. So are they tipping their pitches? Can other teams pick up on that? That's where kind of the scouting comes in. A lot of these leagues share data. So if you're one MLB organization, you're trading data with another. So they all are kind of seeing it. It's just how do they leverage it? So having more contextualized, more integrated data in their systems. I mean, a lot of these MLB organizations, they'll bring in 4 or 5 different technologies together and they're building their own systems to better take, better take advantage of that integration, better leverage that data. So that's where I think MLB does it. But again, it's when a pitch, when a pitcher is going to pitch, right? And you got that small area that they're pitching from. Pitching's intentional. Uh, Batting, you need to know where the ball is, right? If you don't have that ball location, if you can't track the ball, I mean, now we track the ball also, so we know where the ball is, but the type of pitch, the exact location, the speed of the ball, that's going to change a batter's biomechanics, right? If it's slow and away or high and high and away, low and inside, that's going to change trunk position. So if you don't know where that ball is, for example, you're looking at some data and it's like, well, why is he swinging this way and that way? I mean, that's just like an easy example, right? Um, so yeah, I think that stuff is very important. And some teams are better at, interpretation. I mean, that's the key. That's a secret sauce, right? And now with the scalability, if we capture every pitch in a game, every pitch faced from the batter's side, you have so much data. So that becomes an issue too. Like, all right, we have so much data now. How do we sift through that and pick out the key important things? Again, it goes back to what question are we asking? How do we best answer it? So bringing in different technologies, because there's not one company, one piece of technology, they don't do it all. So it
Nice.
becomes
Perfect.
very, very important. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So, we talked a little bit about baseball. What about basketball? Like I know, shout out to Adam. Adam Peway did research on the ACL and Achilles tendon injury mechanism. So I know, I don't know about medical staff, but I know a lot of performance staff are like look into this, the injury mechanism. But outside of like the ACL or Achilles tendon, what are some other stuff that like teams are looking to when they implement these like uh motion capture or biomechanics lab?
Yeah, well, the NBA and the NBA Players Association, right? They just rolled out this biomechanics initiative program. So now every team has the same setup, the same 8 camera motion capture system, same 2 force plates. They use Thea and they use a fourth company that does the reporting and visualization. And that's from a player health and safety perspective. Um, Now, some of the teams just they don't have biomechanists on staff yet, right? So they still have some, I don't want to say catching up to do, but they're still learning on how to leverage that data. And that's just one piece of the puzzle. That's just for that player health and safety. But now the next level in the NBA is these shooting labs is really what they're calling them. So that's either half court or full court, fully instrumented. I say instrumented cameras. Sometimes there's force plates in the floor. Um, for shooting, for contested shots, free throws. I mean, what a good free throw percentage is, I don't know, what, 81, 82%. Well, why isn't it 90%? Why isn't it 95%? Right? It's called a free throw. It's not that it isn't that easy, or it'd be much higher, right? So that's something very simple in a shooting lab. It's like, okay, take 20 shots. Well, some guys are hitting 12, some are hitting 19. So the repeatability, um, contested shots, that's just another layer. Do you want to know where the player is that's contesting that shot? How close are they? Um, and then on these half court or full court practice facilities, it's not just really a shooting lab. They do agility drills, functional movement activities. You can use the space really for really anything you want. So that's kind of the next level I see at for the NBA and the WNBA in particular is these we're calling them shooting labs. Um, and then I think it will eventually get to, in game, capturing it all and having that data turned around and contextualized in, I don't know, an hour or two. We're not there yet, but we're not too far away.
So, mm, so this shooting lab, is it kind of like what baseball were doing before they were like before they were capturing this in-game data? They have this biomechanic pitching lab. Like Wake Forest, Auburn, like they are probably one of the first that had these biomechanics lab in like for pitching. Is it kind of the same concept? And uh for shooting lab, what can we look into?
Yeah. And yes, to answer your first question, yes, it's very much similar. It's more on the training side. Um, yeah, there's pitching labs all over the country now, right? Small private training facilities. I mean, we talk to them. I talk to them on a weekly basis. There's a new inquiry. Hey, we want this pitching lab like Wake Forest, like Auburn, like Arkansas, etc. And it's such a controlled environment. Again, it makes it easier, to implement that. The shooting lab, yes, it's a training system. Um, so we'll see more and more of those come out for sure. But that's where I say the NBA and basketball in general is just they're the next team in sport or league in sport to really follow in the footsteps of Major League Baseball. They just have a few more challenges just by the nature of the game. But, hockey, they're starting to use it also for training purposes. Some skating, some shooting, but a lot of off ice things like functional movement assessments, right? Return to play, those sorts of activities, those sorts of reasons. The NFL, that's even more difficult, right? Those guys are all over each other, right? Very close proximity. So the NFL now, for the most part, from my view, it's more, uh, for quarterbacks where you can isolate them, or especially in a training environment, you can definitely isolate them. So that's an easy first step. But after that, I think in the NFL, it becomes very difficult. But other sports like cricket, very similar to baseball. Um, so so that's easier. Tennis, that's another sport I feel is ideal for motion capture. Definitely golf. I'm surprised golf isn't as far. I mean, they're far along, but I'm just surprised it's not more stream for more mainstream for especially for the number of people that play, around the world. Um, but I don't know if it's going to be 5, 10, or 15 years from now, but every arena, every stadium, every sport is going to have biomechanical data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, this is a hard one. So, with baseball, I've been using all these biomechanics lab. Do you think it really help in terms of in like reducing injury or enhancing performance?
Yeah, I think enhancing performance is easier, right? I mean, I think that's
Easiest part,
yeah, yeah. The injury part, predicting injury,
or even like
identifying fatigue. I mean, that's the end goal here, I think, right? Keeping these guys and girls on the playing field is like, it's a hot topic. It's important. The money lost, emotionally, what it does to people. So I think that's kind of the holy grail. That's what we're all kind of chasing. Uh, Now with again, I'll go back to the scale of the data. And the fact that we now can measure it in game in competition, that's helping. But we're only in 5, 6 years really in Major League Baseball. College baseball, it's trickling down into. So um, we're not there yet, but I think we're a lot better off than we were, 5 or 6 years ago. So I think we've taken a giant step forward, but with the amount of data, is that going to help? And with AI uh, being helping us identify these factors for injury and fatigue, um, yeah, it's a matter of time till we take that next step. Yeah.
Nice, nice. All right. So, you mentioned that actually mo probably most of the major league team have a biomechanist on staff. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know like not like every NBA team have this so-called biomechanist, but like what like in your experience talking to like baseball, talking to basketball or golf, even football with like quarterback doing all those stuff. Um, what are some missing things that you think like teams, organizations, or even like college baseball, college basketball, they sh like you think they should look into, but like there's still a gap there.
Well, it's still expensive, right? It's an investment. So you have to get buy-in from the organization or the university, the school. Um, so it's still a big hurdle. There's no doubt about it. Things are becoming cheaper. They're easier to use. You don't necessarily have to have a master's or PhD in biomechanics anymore to collect the data. So, that helps. Um, but I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong. I it's just the adoption time. And we're right in the middle of it. So I see progress. It's funny, I talk to a lot of NBA teams and I see they're grabbing people from MLB organizations, right? They're kind of stealing them because they've been through this. You know, a lot of people have been in, you know, a lot of biomechanists or data scientists, they've been dealing with this data. They've gone through the ups and downs of like adopting, the initial onset of, hey, we have this data now, these capabilities. So they're kind of using their experience. It makes sense. I even know some NHL organizations doing the same thing. They're just grabbing people from for that experience, which is, yeah, it's definitely smart. So there's definitely a huge opportunity for people getting out of school, right, with that kind of degree. So yeah, we're still, it's a growing field. I didn't know what the word biomechanics was until I was a senior in undergrad, right? Never heard of it. I just had to take a class called biomechanics, and that's kind of how I ended up where I am today. Was I just love sports. I was always good at math and computers. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I just kind of fell into it just because of that course. Now you have kids in little league that are using their iPhone, right? And they're learning what hip shoulder separation is, what layback is, scapular load. Um, they're learning these things in middle school. Like, so they're laying that foundation. And even the coaches, some of the coaches now are, much more educated on the data science and biomechanics. I'm not saying everyone needs to have it, but it's just becoming more popular, more mainstream. So, and I mean, you see it. I'm sure you know and probably would agree that it comes from a top down. If the leaders don't believe in it, if they don't see value in it, then you people like us have an uphill battle, right? So so having that in more mainstream. Again, I keep saying mainstream, but I think it's important is if they see the value, if they understand it, they don't have to fully understand it, but it's like anything else. If they have see the value in it, if you can prove it, and they're on board, it will trickle down throughout organizations, teams, leagues, etc. I mean, I'm really impressed with the NBA, right? And the Players Association. I mean, for them to do this on a league-wide basis, um, I mean, I just, yeah, if it's a great model, if it works out as well as I think it can, soccer, soccer, football, other leagues will adopt this, same type of setup. So the potential here is it's another huge step. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you mentioned that uh you mentioned about like collecting data and like interpreting the data. I remember like a year ago, like that was when I still at Louisville, like I think it's at Louisville Bat. They're looking for a entry level biomechanist, like just to collect in-game data. And we were talking to them, like you just press every time the pitcher like pitch, you just some press a button, and then when the fish
Yeah.
press another button. That's how easy nowadays to collect the data, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What about interpreting the data? Like when it comes to interpreting data, what specific are you like? You don't have to like go down to like oh pitching like joint like how many degrees of joint angle, but like can you kind of share a little bit like after collecting the data like uh yeah are some things like in your experience teams look into in terms of like uh yeah pitching.
Yeah. Well, for pitching, I mean, that's another, yeah, it's always comes back to that's the easiest thing. I mean, you have in pitching, there's player development, there's monitoring the mechanics, there's the prehab, rehab, pitch design. You may want to add, someone has three pitches in their arsenal. They may want to add, the coach may want to add a fourth. The player may want to add a fourth. It's like, okay, that's part of the player development process. Let's get on the mound. Let's see what this ball does. Let's see what the biomechanics are. Um, pitch deception. I mean, that's been the last couple of years. That's been a hot topic. So can you change your mechanics to better hide the ball? Just examples. Indicators of fatigue again. If someone's when did they start to fatigue? Is it the fifth inning, the seventh inning? Is it a number of pitches? So are they doing something different that we can identify? Like right now in Major League Baseball, the data is at the point where we can get this minutes later. Now, is it allowed to be used? Right now, not so much, but will those rules change here in a year, 2 years, 5 years? Probably. And it'll get there in seconds, most likely. So, are people going to be allowed, or teams, or coaches, or data scientists? There's a couple teams that have people with biomechanics background in the dugout right now. Like I know that for a fact. So there's some forward thinking, organizations that are taking advantage of that. So yeah, I think we're right around the corner from, especially for pitchers. I mean, again, it's the easiest thing because it's intentional and because of, you know, they're out there by themselves. There's no player occlusion.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's easy. It's the easiest. It's the model, really. So yeah.
Nice, nice. All right. Um, so with this, everybody's building a biomechanics lab. And do you think like uh the job opening would be like just like biomechanics engineering to like collect the data to interpret the data so like so the strength coaches and physical therapists or athletic trainer would understand like what is it collecting or like you need to have someone like have deeper understanding like what happens in the joint, what happens like each joint. Like I don't know, like I guess if I'm making any sense, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's why it's important to have like a lead, right? To bring the different groups together. So if you have somebody, say at a major league organization that has the background and the experience to to go back to your question before, it's like, all right, well, what are we pulling out of this game? Well, you may have some base reports, but someone may get injured, or you want to go back and kind of more ad hoc and ask questions. Why did they get injured? We didn't see any indicators. So, can we learn from that experience? Here we have our general biomechanics reports, and we may only look at, I mean, one pitch, we produce over 90 time series graphs. We can pull out 250 discrete metrics. I mean, that's a lot of data, right? It's too much. And you never want to show anybody more than a handful of, data points, graphs, charts, tabular data, whatever it is. You're just going to scare people off, and it's just way too much. So I think having these general reports and then kind of working back and dive deeper when and if needed. Um, but I think having a point person makes a lot of sense so that if the strength and conditioning coach comes and says, "Hey, I want to implement this new strength and conditioning program," how do we see if it's working? What would you do as a biomechanist from from that standpoint? How do we set up this study or this pilot study or this protocol so that we can tell, all right, this 6 week strength and conditioning program, what did it do for these particular groups of players? So, and even someone to work upstairs with medical staff, right? So, okay, well, what does this MRI say, or what possibly could have led to this? So, I think it's ever evolving, and bringing other people in, whether it's physical therapists, strength and conditioning, just coaches in general for development that aren't really familiar or have the background, um, tying it all together. You know, a big piece of this too is people all speak different languages when it comes to this data science field. So just because from a biomechanics standpoint, if I start throwing around, well, is ABA deduction, it's 5 degrees, and the coach could be like, "What the hell are you talking about? What does that mean?" Right? So you have to know. I think it's important the communication, and everyone speaks the same language. So we're definitely not there yet, but I think people realize it and understand it. Um, so that's something where I think we still have room to grow. Yeah.
Hmm. All right. So last part of this podcast, uh, I want to ask, because you work with Thea right now, like, what do you think you guys are better than like other companies? And I want to say, like, the reason I reach out to you is because, like, I had this conversation with Terrace Hightower. He's obviously like one of the best in foot and ankle. And I remember him saying like he was consulting to like different organizations, and some of the organization, the biomechanics lab, is like when it comes to foot and ankle, you got 26 bone in foot and ankle. But on the camera or the system, they just track 3 points. I'm like, how is that
Right.
going to be helpful? You're not going to be able to understand like what's going on there. Like change direction, landing, the foot goes into pronation,
Right.
inversion, eversion. You're not going to be able to understand all that. So
Sure.
kind of like, and like I was watching your video, like you guys' video. It's actually pretty cool. You're able to track the foot, the rib cage. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so at Thea, we track 124 virtual markers, key points, landmarks. People call them different things, but it's 124 points on the body to come up with this 17 segment biomechanical data set. So, like the hand, for example, is a segment. So, frame by frame basis, very high frame rates, 600 frames per second in baseball, usually about 120 in basketball. Just depends on what's needed for what activity. But the hand, what's the position and orientation in space? So that's what we do, and that's what I think we do best. We're tracking 124 points on the body to give the best biomechanical result. Some of our competitors are 26, 29 points. So I think that's where Thea definitely has a leg up now. And we have a very generalized model. So if you're doing cartwheels, you know, if you're doing gymnastics, if it's bowling, I mean, you name it, that model will track that individual, that athlete, that patient, that subject extremely well. So that's where I think Thea has, yeah, the advantage right now for sure. But we're very focused on that is the company's goal is to track, motion. So we don't really deal with the hardware. We're camera agnostic, so we can work with right now it's 7 or 8 different camera vendors. Um, right now we don't do any of the reporting side. We just deliver the biomechanical, the motion capture biomechanical data, and then they will take it and run with it and put it into reports that, you know, they think is important. So we're not telling anyone, hey, in baseball, you have to look at this, this, and this. We're just providing the best motion capture data to produce the best biomechanical reports.
Mm.
And very good point on the foot. I mean, I worked with a foot and ankle surgeon for 12 years. We used to put 16 markers on the foot in a lab setting. So things like that. I mean, there's definitely limits to the technology right now. And I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. The foot is very complex, and if you're wearing a shoe, I mean, no, you're not gonna track it like a bunch of markers in a lab. But maybe that's another piece of technology that you do need, and maybe that's why the lab is supplemental to what's going on in competition. Major League Baseball, perfect example. These guys most of the teams have this stuff in game to some degree. They all do. They definitely have motion capture data, but they also have labs for training, for um, fine tuning. So it doesn't always have to be baseball activities, right? You want some of this return to sport, functional movement activities that you don't see on the field. All right, you're not seeing single-legged squats. You're not looking at symmetry, asymmetry, but you want to do that off the field to make them better on the field. So I just see it, the lab stuff is lab training. It's just complementary. And there are some advantages to, the older technology. Call it older, but I mean, it's older, but it's slightly different. Yeah.
Nice, nice. All right. I know that I said that's last, but I still got one more question.
No, I'm good. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you talk about tracking motion, and we talk about the foot and ankle, pronation, supination, inversion, eversion. So when you mean by tracking, I probably should start with this. Uh, a lot of injuries or a lot of like pain. If we go back to like maybe before all these biomechanics lab, like a lot of people would just treat pain isolated. Means like, oh, so if I'm complaining about knee pain, then I'll just deal with the knee. If I'm complaining about like low back pain, I'm just uh gonna do just focus on low back,
Yep.
which I'm not saying it's wrong, but like coming learning from guys like Dan Paff, Coach Wu, Adam Petway, like the foot affects the tibia, affects the femur, affects SI joint. The spine is just adapting. So
Sure.
is that gonna help us understand these joint motion or like how the foot affects human body in uh, like understand these joint motion or the biomechanics even like deeper?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think so. Part of the power of biomechanics and motion capture is comparing to a group of typical or uh, a different population, right? I may come in with the knee pain, and if you get a gait analysis, a walking analysis, for example, um, you may have that knee pain, but when you overlay all of the gait analysis data, you may see that, okay, yeah, this person is pronating 10 more degrees than what he should. And why? Because we have a healthy population. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 100 people, and his graphs, right, his data, it lays outside of those lines. So looking at it on a more holistic level like that and comparing it to healthy, or maybe it's pitching and this guy throws 100. Why am I stuck at 92? Well, what's he doing different? So I think that's part of the power is to look over time within somebody and then also take somebody's data and compare it to a control set, whether that's healthy individuals, whether that's exceptional individuals. But that's really where I see, and I was in the gait analysis world at a grad school for 15 years. So, we did, a lot of that is just what you said. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I have this hip pain. Well, why? All right, well, I had some accident where I had my ankle fused, 15 years ago. Well, that's probably causing the hip pain. And this is what healthy individuals are doing at the knee, at the ankle, at the foot, and it's propagating up. And okay, well, you may need a different orthotic, or you may need some strength and conditioning in that ankle or a muscle group to get you closer to typical walking. So, so a lot of that goes on. I don't think, not so much at the professional sports level. It's hard to get guys, to go outside of their kind of wheelhouse. They want to be on the field, they want to be on the course. But is there power in that? Yeah, definitely for sure.
Nice, nice. I think this ended
Yeah.
perfectly. So for those who are interested in what we're talking about today, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, through the Thea website. Um, Yeah, there we have an inquiry page, and I see all of those. And then my email address, I don't know if you could put it in the chat
I'll put it
but
in the
yeah,
chat.
scott.coleman@theamarculus.com. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn all the time too, so my profile there, I respond to messages. So yeah, I'm easily accessible for sure.
Nice, nice,
Yep.
nice.